Thank you for tuning in to Escape the Mind Reviews. My name is Brandon, and I am joined by the Soulless Samurai, and we are here tonight to discuss Castle Rock Episode 7, The Word. How we doing tonight, Soulless?
I am good, B. I'm really excited for this one. The last episode ended on a cliffhanger, and I just want answers.
Well, hopefully we get some answers, and hopefully we're not left with even more answers after those, even more questions after those answers.
Yeah, right? It seems to be how this goes, but I'm going to hope we're getting closer toward the end. I want to know what's actually going on.
Yes, absolutely. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure you crush that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And again, here's your one warning for spoilers. We're going to discuss Castle Rock Episode 7, The Word. If you have not seen it, make sure you bounce out. Make sure you watch it and then come back, give us a listen, and make sure you leave a comment below if you have any clues or thoughts or theories about things you want to share with us.
Or let us ruin it for you.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I got into these types of podcasts previous to us doing them, and there are people who listen to these without ever having watched the show.
Yeah. I feel like there's a contingent out there that doesn't want to waste time watching some stuff, but still wants to be able to talk about it. So
Yeah.
they'll watch reviews, they'll look it up on Wikipedia and try to figure out exactly what's going on just to be able to talk about it. So, hey, maybe we're providing these people with some social interaction.
I did that with the last Star Trek that just came out that was supposed to be terribly awful. I watched a couple reviews on that just to see how bad it was.
Right.
And I never watched any of the episodes because I was like, yeah, I'm not wasting my time on that.
I have a friend who typically reads more than he watches movies and such, but then I'll ask him if he's seen a movie or knows about something, and he'll be like, I didn't see the movie, but I read about it on the internet.
Yeah. So, hey, if you're one of those folks, thanks.
Yeah, we're here for you.
So this episode starts off in, looks like we're back in the days of 1619.
Mm-hmm.
And we're back at old school Castle Rock. And one of the first things that you notice are those beetles seem to be all about the town.
Yeah, indeed.
And there appears to be like a meeting of people. It looked like it was a church.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that you saw what looked like to be a big cross on the wall, so we're going to assume that's the church.
Yeah, crucifix, not even a cross. It was Jesus hanging from the cross.
So we see the man from the TV reflection from when Ace was watching the old home movies, and he's up in front of the church, and he's addressing the people, and they're basically having a discussion about the town being cursed. And there's nothing growing, and some of the folks want to leave and other folks want to stay. It seems to be an argument even about whether or not the people believe it's even cursed, or if it's like individual people who are cursed, not the land itself.
Mm-hmm.
We shortly thereafter meet Amity and this is the girl that we saw at the end of season 1 during the interdimensional breaks, if you will.
Dude, I didn't even catch that. Thank you.
Yeah. If you go on, I think it's IMDb, you can see that it's the same person.
Okay, gotcha. And yeah, from the they're speaking a different language, and you can tell that from the subtitles. And I'm wondering, the only thing I have a vague understanding of is Spanish, and it's obviously not that. So I'm like, is this French? Is it Italian? Is it Portuguese? You don't really know what language they're speaking. You're assuming they're like English pilgrims.
Yeah.
Found in Castle Rock, but they're speaking a different language.
So while Amity is addressing the people, she appears to kind of have a stroke, sort of, or she convulses pretty heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And during her convulsions, you can hear people in the background saying that she's possessed.
Yeah.
So the next scene, she wakes up and she's chained up, kind of Misery style, but she's chained up, like standing up rather than laying down.
Mm-hmm.
So the people of the town decide to banish her and the guy from the TV reflection because they believe her to be a witch and for him to be that he is her lover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they make some they have some pretty good innuendo.
Yeah, it looked like they found some love notes between the two of them, and that's how they knew. And it was interesting that they kind of let him hang himself per se with what he said before they actually brought out that they already had the love notes. Like they let him defend her, and then they were like, "Oh, by the way, thanks for saying that because now you're going to."
Yeah, and he was begging for her to be able to stay and let me go, let her stay. she's obviously unwell.
Yeah, he makes an argument that she's to be pitied due to just her being unwell, not banished.
Mhm.
And it appears that she's related to one of the townspeople that's banishing them, like he might be her dad.
Yeah.
So as they're fending for themselves in the wilderness, it appears that he falls ill, and she has been like attempting to hunt and forage for them.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of all this, Amity's making a fire, and she appears to be like painting or drawing. And you hear a sound very similar to the sound you heard in season 1 around Castle Lake. It's also very similar to the smoke monster sound from Lost.
Uh-huh.
And so definitely
Damn it,
seems
J.J. Abrams.
yeah, and it also seems that it might be also the same sound that Joy heard when she dove in for the paddle into the water
Right.
in one of the previous episodes.
Yeah.
So Amity follows the sound, and she ends up running across what looks to be a man in black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She walks kind of this precipice in this like rocky outclove where she finds a fire, and she's approached by a hooded figure.
We see this then depicted in a drawing in the Marston house. And when we kind of flash forward to current time, we can see renovations are continuing along in the house with Ace, and there are a ton of new body snatched people.
Mm-hmm.
We see for the first time through Ace's eyes what all of the body snatched people looked like in their past lives as well, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it just seems like it's all these people from 1619 fixing up the house, painting on the walls, doing all that, and then it focuses on Ace, and you realize that this is all through his eyes, his perceptions.
So we see Ace meet up with Hassan at the planning of the Castle Rock 400 anniversary. Clearly, their plan is going to commence during the parade and party.
Mm-hmm.
We see the cops interviewing Anne, and she says that she did what she had to do. Rita attacked her, and Anne defended herself.
Yeah, she totally confessed to killing Rita.
She said she didn't know Rita until she broke into her lodge. And she tells the cops kind of go back and forth with her about, like, I think you know more than what you're leading on, because Rita received a call from Maine and then clearly just booked it for Maine. So something must be like, did you say something to her to make her come here? Something of that nature. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she says something pretty funny. She's like, I don't know why crazy people do what crazy people do.
Yes. Yeah. They're interrogating her very hard. And the cop even asks her, did you know this person beforehand? And she says no. And he's like, well, we know that there was a phone call from here. And then she booked it immediately down. And yeah, Annie says, quote, I don't know why a crazy woman does what she does, unquote. And well, she might not know what a crazy woman does. I just think it's really funny coming from her.
I mean, she would know best that a crazy person would not know what they're doing in that moment.
Yes, very true.
So the cops take Anne and Joy down to the station, and then we get the long fabled scene that we wondered if we were going to get the entire time here at Castle Rock, which is Pop showing up at Shawshank.
Yeah, dude, I was so happy when that happened. I'm like, there it is.
You know, you always wondered if Andy was going to get back to the prison at this point, and it almost seems apropos that he's aged. Like, it almost seems like an older, wiser Andy Dufresne showing up to recollect about his time in Shawshank.
He's back.
So we find out that Pop's there meeting someone that doesn't appear to like him very much, and that Pop doesn't seem to like very much either.
Yes, definitely.
Shortly thereafter, we find out that he's meeting with Chris and Ace's real dad, who apparently beat on his wife after he came home from the war, and this led to eventually her death.
Yeah, and he's doing hard time for it.
And this is also Pop's sister, Brenda, who is, again, the father of Ace and Chris. And Pops let him know that he came to prison to forgive him. So you wonder if this is the conversation that he was really having between him and the priest. You thought it was something that Pop did wrong. Maybe Pop was truly trying to forgive Brenda's killer instead of himself.
True. And when he's talking to him, you get the sense that they were in the military together.
Yeah, or he just had knowledge of the situation. But yeah, like they were definitely both in the military.
Yeah, he even says stuff about a soldier coming home and telling stories, and a soldier beating his wife and all that. So I'm wondering if they served together, or if he just knows.
Yeah, he says to him, everyone deserves forgiveness, even you. And we find out Ace has been visiting his dad in the prison shortly thereafter. And we find out that Ace went down to actually where they were keeping the kid from season 1 who was locked up by the warden of Shawshank.
Yeah, down in Block F, or where Warden Lacey had kept them caged up.
You know, I didn't really think that we were going to get back here in this season. So it's pretty interesting to find that we're back at the cage where it all kind of started.
Yeah, agreed. I didn't think that it was going to all tie together. And now I'm regretting telling people, just watch season 2. You don't even need to watch season 1.
It definitely would add to it a bit if you had some history on the situation. But I think the most interesting thing you find out about this is that the cage is locked. The clothes that the
From
kid
the
was
outside.
wearing were inside, but
Mhm.
there's no body.
Yep. It was only a few years ago because the kids are talking about Warden Lacey killing himself at Crystal Lake and wondering if his body's still down there. So not a lot of time could have passed between these events. So yeah, now as far as we know, the end of season 1, the kid is left down there, right? And then
Well, it appears that he's got out.
yeah,
Or is this another check in the he's the devil column?
dun dun dun.
I don't think they gave the specific details on why he chose to build the cage the way he did, other
Mhm.
than he was told to build it that way.
Right.
But I wonder if there was anything special about it that was supposed to keep a demonic entity inside.
It's not working.
Yeah, it didn't work, whatever it was. So the other interesting piece of information about this is that Pop finds out that Ace has been hanging out at the Marston house.
Hmm. Yeah, and he seems very shocked and indignant about that. You can tell he lets that sink in.
Pop seems to be the first person that's really putting together the pieces that something's wrong, like something big is going on.
Right. Well, the guard that he talks to in Shawshank is like, Ace is hitting all the spots. You know, here Block F, the Marston house, and Pop is like, wait, the Marston house?
Yeah, he's hitting up all the forces of evil in the town.
Yeah.
So then we are taken back again to 1916, and Amity is back in town.
1619.
Sorry, thank you.
You're welcome.
We are then taken back to 1619, and Amity is back in town after her meeting with the man in black, and there are flowers and animals aplenty, and it appears that their troubles of growing food might be over.
Yeah, she comes back with a full bounty.
Amity tells the people that she met an angel. Amity's father is not having it. The guy who banished them earlier in the episode, and he believes this is just another form of her witchcraft.
Right.
The people then decide to call Amity their prophet and fall to their knees around her almost in worship.
Well, yeah, her boyfriend, husband, whatever you want to call him, the guy that was banished with her, straight up claims to them that Amity is a prophet. And they
Yeah,
all
she
bow.
speaks for the angel.
Yeah.
This then kind of ends up depicting another painting that's on the walls inside the Marston house.
Mm-hmm.
We see Pop touring the house after he has arrived there looking for Ace, and I was immediately thinking this might be the end for Pops.
Right.
He's done the one thing we were looking for. He hit up Shawshank. We don't need him anymore. This might be the end.
Keeps going into the belly of the beast.
So Pop asks Ace, once he finds him inside of the house, what he's up to, and Ace says that they are a group of like-minded individuals who are fostering relationships between Castle Rock and Salem's Lot.
It's not creepy at all.
Yeah, that's the most politically correct answer you could have.
Yeah, Pop refers to him. He's like, you, Hassan, a bunch of townies, you're a regular Rainbow Coalition.
Ace says, I've had some revelations about myself, but you should go, Pop, because my friends don't want you in their house.
Mm. And Pop asks him, he's like, do you know the history of this place? And Ace says, history does not define a thing, Pop. You of all people should know.
So I feel like that's another check in they know about the past of the people whose bodies they inhabited column.
Right, dude. That light bulb just went off in my head when I said it. It's like, wait.
So Pop immediately leaves the house and he goes to warn Abdi about Ace and his Rainbow Coalition with Hassan.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing that's interesting about this is I didn't even think Pop would make it out. Like, why let him leave after he's clearly piecing together the puzzle? If they don't want him in the goo cult, which it kind of seems like now they don't, which I assumed absolutely they did, but now it kind of looks like they're not interested. Why wouldn't you at least detain him or then kill him just to not have him foil your plot?
Yeah, well, the fact that he runs back and tells Abdi, maybe they're just letting him live and be that like messenger back to people to see what happens. Maybe they just don't care at this point.
Yeah, they think they're too far ahead in their plan that he can't really do anything.
Yeah.
That's fair. So one of the funny things is Pop says to Abdi, like, look, all these people are working with Ace. Something is wrong because people are listening to Ace.
Yeah.
Abdi tells him to basically get out and to stay away from his family, even though what he says is kind of making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So then we see Ace meeting with the Goo Cult, and we find out that there's 38 of them that are in the crypt in total, and that almost all of them have vessels at this point.
Right.
So not the whole town is probably going to get taken over like we were kind of wondering in the previous episodes, but at least a decent chunk of the town is going to be infiltrated by the body snatchers.
Right. Now we know that there's 38 of them from this cult that are looking for their new vessels.
And we also find out that they're going to start their whole thing at the church. So at the end of the parade, when the people are all out in front of the church, that's when they're going to strike.
Yes. To their false place of worship.
And the Goo Cult also finds out that Anne is being held by the cops, and they send Parkman to go take care of it. And all I have to say again is, called it.
Yep.
We then see a pretty disturbing scene of Amity burning her father and the other non-believers upside down.
Yeah, on a stake, but upside down. I can't believe I've never seen or heard of that before, but that's got to be absolutely horrifying. Be hanging upside down, all the blood's rushing to your head, and now there's fire underneath you.
You know, at first I thought the same thing, but then afterwards I was thinking that might actually be better because then you're not going feet up.
Yeah, that's fair, dude. Start there, just get it over with.
Yeah.
Instead of like slowly burning from the bottom up.
So then we see Amity, and I'm going to call him Damien for the moment because that's the only frame of reference I had was the name from the casket from the first episode. Gotcha. So that's what I'm going off of for the guy who's inhabited Ace at this point, because I don't remember them ever saying his name. Do you?
I don't think they mentioned it. No.
So then we see Amity and Damien, or the guy who's inhabiting Ace, making love in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And Amity basically telling the people that now she speaks for the angel and that they will punish those who decide to reject the angel.
Yeah, and that's where we see as they're doing their thing on the altar, they slowly pan out and show that crucifix broken on the floor. So they've cast aside that quote unquote false idol and doing their thing in its place.
Well, for their new dark prophet, they call him an angel, but I don't necessarily know many angels travel in black.
Mm-hmm.
So then we see Parkman telling Ace that Anne is going to be a problem because of her medication, and that basically maybe they should try to find a different vessel for Amity. And Ace is very insistent that since Anne is the one that woke them all up, that she has to be the one that is the vessel for Amity.
Yeah, he says, quote, "The Wilkes woman brought us all back.
Also in that scene, Parkman calls Ace Augustine. So I'm guessing Damien is not who he was, even though we saw that name in the first episode. So we're going to go with Augustine from here on out for the guy inhabiting Ace.
Yeah, and he tells Ace, Augustine, that the cops know that Annie is on prescription drugs and that it's going to be a problem. And Ace says, well, we'll let her sober up.
Well, you would imagine if she's in custody, they're going to make her take her medication. So I wonder how they're going to get around that.
You would hope. So
the next thing that we see is Amity is in the church and she's kneeling in front of this weird deity statue. And she asks it why this entity would ask her to do such a horrible thing. The statue is then flooded with beetles and she is convinced to move to action. We see her essentially convince the town people to do something pretty gross, which I don't know how she convinced them to do. But you essentially swallow a beetle, and then they slit your throat, and then they put you into the casket.
I would have been a hard no at swallow this beetle.
Right?
But, I mean, to each their own.
How she does this, I have no idea. I don't know if the people were just so desperate to have plentiful things in their life. Like they lived through this plague. They lived through the land not growing food. They lived through pestilence and all this stuff. And now they found a way out.
Yeah, I mean, some of it might be hope, but also there's that like charismatic cult leader thing that you can't really explain. I mean, we see that in real life too.
Or is it just the demonic power of that entity that's transferring itself through her to the people?
True, true.
We see Augustine ask Amity, essentially, she gathers all the people around and she does this for the whole 38 people. And the only people that are left are her and Augustine. And he
Hmm.
says to her, like, what am I supposed to do at this point? Like, how am I going to know what to do after we wake up? And she basically tells him that they're going to be asleep for 400 years. He will be reborn first. She'll be reborn last. And that when he's reborn, he needs to find the angel.
Yeah, that's his task. No pressure.
Right. And so she eats a beetle, he slits her throat, and then we basically get taken along to the next part. We don't really see how he gets there, but we're assuming he ate his own beetle and slit his own throat.
Yeah, which is probably the most hardcore of them all.
Well, I mean, his love of her definitely went deep.
Ah, true. All the way up to the hilt.
We are then taken to the Castle Rock Parade. We see that a large statue is being moved in front of the church, and once the parade reaches the church, we get confirmation that the pastor is not Father Callahan after all.
No, Pastor Drew, which in a way is a relief to me. I was hoping Father Callahan would show up in this story, but I'm glad that it's not this guy who appears to be in cahoots with everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a much cooler character they could use for another time.
Yeah. I'd like to point out too that the with the whole Beatles and the Scarabs thing, again, harkening back to the rebirth. So I'm wondering if that's just symbolic or if there's actually some power in these scarabs because they came out of the statue.
Yeah, and then are those the same ones that the people swallowed?
Yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
So out in front of the statue, Father Drew basically says that they're going to do something to help unify the entire town, and they unveil the statue, which is the same creepy statue that we see Amity kneeling in front of that the Beatles came out of.
Mm-hmm.
It appears that everyone's pretty much drawn to the statue. Like even the balloon that the little girl's holding faces the statue. Like everybody's getting sucked in.
There was a single red balloon. I don't know if you saw that at one point. Almost like it was a nod to it in Pennywise. And also Christine was rolling through the parade.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But yeah, the statue has a just huge effect on the entire crowd. Everybody gets quiet. We hear the noise. Pop isn't facing the statue. Pop is turned the other way. He sees the reflection of the statue in a balloon, and he's the only one that's not transfixed by the statue.
He seems to be the only one that can get away from it, and he immediately starts booking it in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So while all this is going down, looks like he's moving towards the Marston house to see if Pop was right about the whole Hassan situation.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes across what appears to be a group of 3 cops that were being burnt, very similar to the 3 bodies that were burnt by Amity with her dad and the non-believers.
Right. Yeah. He comes upon that scene. I'm really curious if that was Parkland for arguing.
Oh, Parkman, the dude from Heroes.
Parkman, yeah.
Yeah.
If it was him because Ace didn't like his him arguing with him over Annie, or if it was the cops that were guarding Annie.
Yeah, I think probably the latter.
Gotcha.
But that's not a bad point. I mean, it could have been that he didn't like his lack of faith and was like, all right, well, then I'm going to quickly nip this in the bud and anybody else's lack of faith. And we're going to make it 33 people or 35 people. And we're going to move forward with this.
We'll find you a new vessel.
Or if not even bring them back at all.
Yeah, right.
So the next scene that we can see is that Amity is meeting the Angel in Black. And during their meeting, the Angel in Black pulls back his hood. And we are surprised to find out that it's actually the kid from the cell from season 1.
Shocker. That one got me, dude. I mean, even when you see the statue, I was like, that kind of looks like the guy.
Yeah, Bill
guy that was
Skarsgård.
trapped under Shawshank. But then when you actually see him and you realize that he's the person behind all of this, it's quite a WTF moment.
And he's clearly been alive for 400 years.
Yeah. So do you think this is the Count of Saint Germain?
Oh, there you go. That's an interesting one. And if you know what the Count of Saint Germain is, make sure you leave a like.
Yeah, right. That's for the 3 people that'll get that reference.
So Ace says that basically during the unveiling of the statue that this story is going to start with Castle Rock and it's going to end with Castle Rock, and then the episode is over. And I think it's interesting to see because I want to know if this demonic entity guy, the kid from the cell, if he is just an agent of chaos. Like, is he doing all of this to fuck with them? Or is he trying to move forward with some grand master plan? Or is it a little bit of both?
Right. Or is the grand master plan just to fuck with people?
Yeah. Like, I don't know why he would have to make them die and then bring them back 400 years later, unless it was just his way of unveiling a different type of plague upon the town.
Yeah. Wow. Just the fact that you're basically going to make 38 people hibernate and come back that don't know anything about the modern world.
But I think about it this
curious.
way. You have your own group of fanatics that you can essentially roll out whenever you want.
True.
So
true.
if you have this plan that you're if you're the devil in this situation, because that's kind of what they believe you to have you believe this kid is possibly the devil. If your master plan is to have this, whatever's wrong with Castle Rock, maybe potentially spread out past Castle Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Castle Rock's just where the space is thin enough for them to penetrate through,
Giggity.
then essentially you could have this spawn out from that town. So if you have this group of fanatics that you could then bring in when the time is just right to hatch your plan, that I think would be pretty nice to have in your back pocket.
That's true. And like Pop even makes reference at the one point about them, the people of Castle Rock making deals.
Oh yeah, they said that they made a deal with a bad guy and they ended up burning for it.
Yeah. And they've been doing it for a long time. So being a fan of Stephen King lore, I have to wonder if this is Randall Flagg, aka the Man in Black that you referenced. I mean, he always seems to be there in that situation. The Stand, the Dark Tower.
Did Randall Flagg have anything to do with Derry specifically?
I'm not sure.
Because I feel like that's
Randall Flagg was a very heavy influence in the antagonist side of the people that were left in the Stand.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, like,
because when Ace mentions going to Derry to Pop when he's in the hospital, I feel like that's where he went to go meet the Angel. Because if he had to meet the Angel, why else would he have gone to Derry? So if he went to Derry to meet the entity, which was the kid in the cell, that's where I think that the kid's still out there, and that's where the kid is now, is the kid's in Derry.
And that same person plays Pennywise.
Yeah. So maybe he is truly inhabited by or guided by the hand of Pennywise. Maybe we'll say that. I like that better. Because the hierarchy then would be Pennywise, Amity, Ace, which now we have kind of our captain, co-captain, and first runner-up of our monster crew.
A little trickle-down effect.
I mean, I like having the hierarchy in place. Like, you kind of know where the power goes.
Makes you feel a little better, like there's some order there, but I don't know that there's an order.
Well, it seems that they follow Ace, and Ace follows Amity, and Amity follows the Angel. So I feel like that's kind of... It makes you wonder how... Ace seems incredibly devoted. Would that go even... Is his devotion to both of them, or to Amity, or to specifically the Angel? It makes you wonder where he gets his bread buttered.
Very true. Very true. Oh, man. I'm even more hooked on where this is going now, because it could go in so many ways in the Stephen King universe. Again, it could be Randall Flagg just being an agent of chaos this whole time. It could be, spoilers, but the Crimson King influencing this whole thing. Again, you have the Stand and the way that those things went down. There's a lot of different ways that this could go.
So out of 10, where are we going to rate this episode of Castle Rock?
So as far as enjoyment, 8 frustration, 8, because now there's all these questions again.
I feel like I was happy with it. I'll also give it an 8 on this one. My one problem is the same problem I have with most JJ stuff, which is we're starting to get to the point where I wonder, are you introducing too many things to wrap this up?
Gotcha.
The first season did not get wrapped up in a nice bow by any means.
No, but they brought it back.
They did. But then are you going to do that to me again? Where you basically just wherever it ends is where it ends, and you don't really get questions answered other than just what they happen to tell you in that given moment.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I assume there's going to be more seasons of Castle Rock. So I would be slightly frustrated if I was left with a cliffhanger again at the end of the season. I want some of these things answered. But again, the Stephen King universe is so vast. It could just nestle itself into that lore without exactly wrapping up.
And we're all over the place with canon. I mean, like them borrowing things and then doing other things right on. And
totally.
So, I mean, who knows where they could really go with it from here.
And we barely got to see any of Joy or Annie's story. Or actually, we have the little glimpse at the one point when the cops are interrogating them. But that story was not furthered at all.
And I really wonder if I really thought that the Man in Black was going to be like the vampire Barlow, but it ended up being the kid in black, the kid from the cell. So then,
what if the kid in the cell is Barlow and Barlow is the kid in the cell?
Would the timing match up on that?
Does it matter?
That's true. So I wonder at this point where it's, because I don't feel like then they're vampires at all.
It doesn't seem that way, right?
Yeah, and they're not necessarily like, I don't know where the Beatles really tie in, other than are they somehow able to either facilitate the goo, or do they somehow allow them to like keep their soul from leaving that casket or coffin or whatever?
Yeah, maybe that's the little vessel for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, the scarabs equal rebirth in Egyptian lore. So that it could be going in that direction, but also, as we know it, like in Western lore, the beetle was also destruction.
Well, that works too.
Yeah,
that's true. I didn't think of that way.
And you really don't know. And even in Salem's Lot, I think it's implied that they're vampires, and it's portrayed as a vampire story, but it still seems too simple for Stephen King. So, I mean, maybe this guy is using that house to create this army of the undead, and he's trying to just house people to be vessels later on. At this point, it seems like he has zero to do with any of this, like you said. So
yeah, I'll definitely be watching week after week to see where this goes. I'm happy that we chose to start off this Escape the Mind Reviews podcast with this show, because it is something entirely different from things that we've covered up to this point. Although some of the other topics that we discuss can be in themselves thrilling and sometimes horrifying, it's cool to be able to step your way into to dip your toe into the Stephen King kind of horror TV show universe.
Very true. I mean, if nothing else, we're pretty good at suspending reality or suspending belief and to take these dives.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are talking about possibly covering The Mandalorian coming up as well, and some other shows. So if you guys have anything that you would like for us to check out, definitely let us know in the comment section below. I know you and I talked about getting a hold of a copy of Dr. Sleep, so that way we can cover that.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really cool for us to do possibly for our first movie review. I know that the second season of Altered Carbon's coming up, so I might want to do that. And we have some other things possibly in the works.
Are you familiar with Mr. Mercedes?
No.
Mr. Mercedes is a relatively recent Stephen King novel and 3-season TV series. I haven't seen it on anything that I've been able to watch it on. Apparently, it was on Audience.
Oh, okay.
Which is a channel
I'm heard of it.
Familiar with.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's 3 seasons there, and Mr. Mercedes is like a serial killer.
Okay. That might be something to get into for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in to another episode of Escape the Mind Reviews. My name is Brandon, and I am always joined by Solus. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Sleep tight. Don't let the Beatles bite.